I hope we have the right graphic here because we're not hacking the brain today. We are talking space weather. So I don't know how hacking the brain got in there. So um, just we are having technical issues today, which isn't surprising because I don't know if you can see my phone here. We're talking space weather, and I got an X flare alert just a few moments ago as we were getting ready. Actually, I got a pre warning, but now it's hit the satellites. And space weather is something that have been asked to do. And there is Ben Davidson of Suspicious Observers, and I'm not trying to encroach in his territory, but I cover it from a different angle, although I will be doing a kind of a general space weather and why you need to know about it and government plans, which is something that Ben does not go into. I'm going to start with some books that I think that all of you need to have for the days ahead, because from now on, for the rest of our lives, space weather is going to be impacting us. What do I mean by space weather? It's going to come from our sun. It can come from a coronal hole stream from our sun. It could come from a solar flare. It could be the galactic electric current sheet. And there is also a current sheet for our solar system. There is also the moon that impacts us, although it's pretty stable. It's something that most of us know about. So, what can it do? It can do everything from take out the grid, it can throw us back to the Stone Age, take out everything that we have known. Um, has man experienced this before? Yes. Many times he went under the earth to survive these periodic times. The thing that primitive man did not have is all the technology that we have, all the satellites, the internet, the telephones, cell phones, all that. They didn't have that. We do have the 1859 Carrington event, which it took out the telegraph in 1859. It was pretty spectacular, and it is what many people mention. But we have not seen a major event since 1859, but we are working on it. And that's what my job is to help you prepare. So, one of the ways I think you all need this is a field guide on the atmosphere. It's actually pretty interesting. It will give you like the different new cloud formations. I know that many of you have sent me emails that you've seen these different cloud formations that you've never ever seen before. So there's two books. There's also so I've got the one on the atmosphere, and then I, doing this on camera is hard, and one on weather. And with these, you will be able to identify because it does have the new weather, cloud formations, and such, and different atmospheric events. They even talk about geoengineering and chemtrails in here. So it's good to have. And then, of course, I'm going to just show you Ben Davidson's books that are par excellent. I think he has a new store out, so you can get them there, I think. This is The Next End of the World. Sorry about the glare. The Rebirth of Catastrophism. And of course, I've been talking about catastrophism from a different point of view, but it includes space weather for decades now. This has also been Observer Supplement 2023. These are, as you can see from my phone, actually events starting to happen now. And here's Ben's Weatherman's Guide to the Sun, third edition. And this is really good. It talks about the biological, anything you want to know about space weather is in this book. It's a great reference. And then, how do you protect yourself? I'm going to cover that before I get to my tabs. So, I actually wrote two books, and this is Electromagnetic Radiation Protection Solutions for the Nuclear Cosmic Superstorm Crisis. And yes, it's me. And basically, these are supplements and foods that will provide you layers of protection against things like the cosmic rays, which is what's happening, and the collapse of the magnetosphere, a nuclear event, God forbid, or even 5G or 6G. So this will give you these layers of protection in your body because our Earth's protection is diminishing. It was down 25%, and it is, according to Ben's report last night, it appears as though we did have a jerk, which means it went down further. We don't know the specifics because we can only tell by certain events. They only really check the magnetism and let's say it's the physical of the Earth's magnetosphere every 5 years. Now, the last time they had to do it earlier because all of our GPS for the government and the military was off to the degree that they had to update everything. So I do talk about supplements and foods in my book, and I try and cover all diets and as many diets as I could, and different cultures, different cuisines. So if you're on the keto, or if you're on the Mediterranean diet, or whatever diet, carnivore diet, or whatever, you should be able to find the radio protective foods and supplements. But in case, this is a pretty good sized book, but it's not comprehensive. It doesn't have every single food and supplement in the world. And so if you want, you can just type in your favorite food into your favorite search engine, whatever the food is, and put radio protective. And then it will give you the information. Is it effective against alpha, beta, gamma, delta rays? When do you take it, this food or supplement? Before an event, during the event, or after the event? And I go through that in my book. What is NASA's number one um, food, or yeah, it's a food to protect the astronauts from radiation, is actually dried prunes. So there you have it, dried prunes. If you can put them in a smoothie, you can put them in yogurt, however you want to put them. They will give you a layer of protection from cosmic rays, nuclear radiation, and also 5 and 6G. And last book, we're going to have some interesting lightning events. So I did write a book on Seven Thunders Revealed. So you could also get that book. And you can get those on Amazon or at shepherdsheart.life. Okay, now I've got a lot of tabs up here, I believe, in showing you all the URLs so that you can do your own deep dives if you want to. And I'm going to start, let's see. We had quite the time trying to get these tabs up for you guys, so we'll see how we're going to do this. Okay, hopefully everybody can see this. This is the 3-day weather forecast. You should be looking at the space weather forecast every day right now. I mean, things have been popping off like crazy. Last week we had some big space weather activity. This morning we get the X-ray flare. And so this will show you. Now, when it's 2, it's not much. We actually had a KP8 last week. So you can see 2 is pretty low. Now, this is really low. When you start seeing numbers below 1, that can affect your health. It can affect your mind. It can affect your body. And so we don't, just like if we were in the hospital, when we see flatline, which is like below 1, that will affect our health. When we see flatline on an EKG, it means the patient's not, not alive. For us with space weather, it just means we're going to be hurting either our brain, our body. But 1.33 isn't, it's pretty flat line. So this can impact our health. And then we go up here tomorrow and we'll have 4. Now that's going to mean that the Earth is going to be starting to be hit. I think that that was a coronal hole stream that's going to be hitting the Earth. And then 3's, is okay. We're fine. Pretty much the Earth and biological life upon the Earth. Now let me see. I have to do this a special way, so I'm going to stop sharing the screen and oops, get out of here. Oof. Okay. There's nothing like being lost in your browser. Ah, let's see, get back into the restream. I don't know if I'm going to be in the right stream. Okay, okay. Not sure what to do, guys. This thing has been just, oh, there it is. Okay. Now I will show you. We'll hopefully get this worked out by the time I tango through all of these. So I'm going to close out that one so I don't get, and then I'm going to share the screen again. And we are going to go to, boy, it's very strange. It's not the same order, but okay, we'll just go here. So I'm hoping that you can see this. The government is making plans. Now, what you're seeing in the media is, oh, there's pretty auroras all the way down to Florida. Focus on the auroras. Meanwhile, you need to know that the governments around the world are preparing for cataclysmic, life-changing upon the face of the earth. Our infrastructure and our biology plans are in high gear, but they're not telling you about it. So you need to know. Now, this is ready.gov. This is actually a FEMA website run by FEMA. So as you can see, they've got a picture of the grid, and it's going to go down. Here is what they have on it: before space weather, what you can expect. So what they're expecting is a loss of water and wasteland distribution systems, which means your water system's going to go down, your sewer's going to go down. There is going to be a loss of perishable foods and medications. There's going to be a loss of your heating and air conditioning and your electrical lighting systems, a loss of computer systems, your telephone, basically all communications, airline flights, satellite networks, and your GPS is going down, public transportation, fuel, distribution systems, and pipelines, and loss of all electrical systems that do not have power. Now, the government does have some redundant power systems in place. I went to some DHS meetings on that. So they do have redundant, but that would not be for the average person. What they want you to do now is to build an emergency kit, make a family communication plan, and these are live links. And if you are interested in my list of links, I didn't include sublinks like in this, but I would be happy to send it to you. Just put space Celeste at celestialreport.com, put space weather and request the links, and then I will send those out as I can. Learn more about preparing for power outages. Have a system if you have medication or supplements that need refrigeration. Keep your car's gas tank at least half full. Know where the manual release levers are, like for your garage door or anything that requires maybe your security system, and keep extra batteries or external chargers in your home. A lot of people are going to some solar um, just in case during space, whether they want you to keep your electricity as low as possible to help out the power companies. You can expect brownouts and rolling blackouts. Follow the emergency alert system, disconnect electrical appliances if instructed to do so by local officials. The reason is because when the power surges back as they turn on the lights, it can cause a fire because sometimes there's like a really high boost. Sorry, my nose is um, itchy today. Don't use the telephone unless absolutely necessary. After a space weather occurrence, throw out any unsafe food. That would be food. If you are careful, you can keep things in your refrigerator and your freezer for 3 days. After that, it becomes dicey, so you'd want to throw it out. Never taste the food or rely on the appearance of odor to determine its safety. Bacteria and botulism, you really can't taste it, and you don't want to risk paralysis or food poisoning. You're going to have enough on your hands. Uh, you can refreeze the food if it's just kind of like soft on the outside from the freezer and it did not get below 40 degrees. And then measure the food's temperature with a food thermometer. It's always good to have that. So this was just updated on May 31st of last year. So these are some things that FEMA wants you to know, but really, are you hearing about these recommendations in the media, the mainstream media? I'm not hearing. I'm just hearing, oh, red auroras going down to Georgia, that type of thing. I'm not hearing any of what they really want you to do when the bad space weather comes. And 2 weeks ago, we actually had a space weather event that they had not anticipated, but it hit us and it was pretty nasty. So you do want to be prepared and start preparing your home for this eventuality. So let's see. That one was, oh boy. Okay. So I gotta get that one out of there. And okay, let's go to my thing here. Okay, I'm just going to show you this one. So this is a site at spaceweather.com. I think it does show the red aurora unless they took it out. There is, this is an arc, but they took the red auroras out. But this shows you this X-class flare, what is happening right here with these big bullseye reds. These are radio blackouts. So if you live in Australia, part of China, Indonesia, and then over here we're kind of over the Pacific, the Eastern Pacific. So they will give you lots of really good information. Let me get up to the top. So they'll give you this current solar speed, what's happening with the solar flares down on. So I'm looking at the left. You're looking at the sunspot number, the climate of the thermosphere, cosmic ray cycle. We're in cycle 25, which is very interesting. And then it'll give you the neutron, it's below average. Let's see, it was very high. The last was December of 2009. And then down below, it will give you where can you see the aurora? And right now the aurora is pretty high up, but as we saw, it did dip down here. It'll give you the KP, which it's quiet right now. It's 1.33. So that's pretty good. And it's going to show you. So when I talk about a coronal hole That's this right here. And then the bright little spots, are some mini flaring. That doesn't mean that they have left the sun yet, but they could. And then they also track noctilucent clouds. So, and it gives you your forecast down here. If you're interested in near Earth, near Earth fireballs and such meteors inbound, it will give you that forecast as well and their trajectory around the Earth. So let me stop sharing here and go back here. This is it's a kind of a funky system, but you just have to go with what you can do. So here. So let me go down to the National Space Weather Portal. So as I said, the government is planning in a big way. This is the NOAA.gov portal. And here are the participating agencies. I'll make this bigger so that you can see it. It is the Unified National Space Weather Portal, provides a gateway to access federally funded space weather information, services, and activities. It connects to a system of existing portals and websites, providing national information to enhance understanding. The portal was developed through the National Space Weather Program as a part of the Unified National Space Weather Capacity. It is an interagency initiative. Of course, it doesn't matter what country you live in, your country is making plans for this. So let's kind of see what they've got. Hopefully, I can get out. So they've got prediction services. Like I said, you really can't trust the prediction because there are surprises, especially from this point forward. There is the International World Meteorological Organization. Just be aware of that. So if you are in another country, there's research. So here's all the different research and what agencies are doing research into space weather. Infrastructure. Everybody's interested about infrastructure and space weather. Here are your satellites that you can look at different space weather events. And here are some um, ground-based space weather. Here's the magnometer. Um, that doesn't have the one that I like to follow, but anyway, let me go back up. You can go for pure data and discovery tools. You can go to virtual observatories. They do have outreach, but like I said, this information is going to specific populations, but it is not getting into the mainstream media, which is my beef. And then there are different programs, as you can see, and each one of these is a live link. So if you get my links for space weather, then you can, deep dive into each one of these or whatever your particular interest is. Of course, the United Nations, yes, is very interested in space weather. And so here are some of the international programs that are focused on space weather. You also have commercial space weather products, and there are reports. So there's FEMA exercises. There is an assessment of the Halloween storms that took place in 2003. That's when I heard thunder from space. There is space weather impact of the power grid, the NASA heliophysics roadmap, the physics of space weather, disaster reduction, what is the space weather plan, and the national security space strategy. That would be interesting to look in. I didn't have time to do that, so I will have to do that later. So let me stop sharing, go back. Sorry about this, guys, but it's the only way. Whoops. Okay, now let's go. Well, I'm going to share this again. Let's see, I think. Okay, got that one. Okay, the next one I'm going to show you is FEMA again, and I just want you to see that so they have an online place where if you are a FEMA register, you have to have credentials. You can take a space weather course. This course is IS 66, Preparing the Nation for Space Weather Events. So they are training FEMA personnel for space weather events that are going to bring unprecedented cataclysm upon the face of the earth. And it takes you about 2 hours to go through. I think this is an online course, and I'm sure that if you actually went to EMI, you would have a more deep dive into space weather. I'm sure they're preparing people at EMI. This course was introduced in September of last year. Okay, stop sharing that screen. Now they ask you a bunch of questions, and so it's insightful. So this particular website, interesting, it has to do, so it has the answers to the FEMA space weather course. And so, like, okay, the most visible attribute of a geomagnetic storm is, so they would ask you that during the class, the online class, and what, of course, they marked it here as the aurora would be the most visible attribute. And that's what the media is focusing on. They're saying, oh, look at the pretty auroras everywhere, but they are not preparing you for what's coming upon the face of the earth. So I'm going to get rid of that. And this is okay. What's next. Okay, so this was issued in May 2019, the federal operating concept for impending space weather events. And you can see there's an executive summary. This is 65 pages long, and you can go as far as you want. So it talks about command and control and communications, delivery of essential services, the cascading risk to human life. Now they know that this will be an existential threat to your life, and yet they're not telling you about it. Potential for long-term and irreversible loss of property and risk to national security. So you might want to take a look at this at your leisure. Just go down, and I'm going to stop sharing this screen, get back into the studio. This is kind of, there must be a way to automate this. Let's see. Okay, I've done that one. Okay, I don't know if I've got the DHS one up here or not. I don't know if I've got the DHS one here. Oh, yeah, I do. Okay. Now let's jump over to DHS. So it's not only FEMA that's interested in the space weather. Here is protecting and preparing homeland against threats of electromagnetic pulse and geomagnetic disturbances. And so I think we are going, hopefully we can see this if I push the button. So this is the strategy for the space weather and electromagnetic pulse. It is 23 pages, and it was issued on October 9th of 2018. What all does it talk about? It gives the mandate and the scope, the background, the strategy summary. That's what the government is going to do, or DHS in specific, implementation plans, goals, of risk awareness of the electromagnetic threats and hazards. I'm not sure if that's going out to the public or within the agency. Goal 2, enhance capabilities to protect critical infrastructure. I am going to tell you that it is COOP and COG. It is not going to protect your infrastructure. It is going to protect the government military infrastructure, and to promote effective electromagnetic incident response and recovery efforts. In other words, never let a good crisis go to waste. So we're going to get out of that. See that? Okay, I'm kind of getting the hang of it here. Let's see. We're going to go down to space, weather, and safety. So this is put together by the National Weather Service. Are you getting the idea? See, the agencies are all working together, but you're not hearing it on the mainstream weather. So once again, they've got space weather. They've got what are the different types of watches and warnings, what to do before an event, what to do during a solar event, and what to do after, and how are some of the different things. Like I said, it can come, the space weather can come from the sun, from the galactic electric current sheet, um, which is a current sheet of electrically charged, for lack of a better word, dust from the center of the galaxy that has made its way and is causing havoc from our nearest stars, like ripped off Pluto's atmosphere when it went by there. The Mars quakes are as a result of that, and now it's hitting Earth. But what are some of the other things? So we've got these pretty aurora lights, can throw off your GPS. I just did a trip to the East Coast, and I had all the people plugged into my GPS, and my GPS said, "You have reached your destination." Well, there was a Century 21 sign and a high school in the back, and I knew that I had not reached my destination. And I go, "I bet it's the next house." And so, sure enough, and from that point on, my GPS was off 20 feet at every location the rest of the trip. That indicated to me that there was this jerk down in our magnetosphere, which then threw my GPS off. I digress. We can have satellite issues. So maybe if you're using a satellite phone or whatever, or communications for government or military, obviously communications, um, it is going to affect the space station, aviation. Pilots are There is a higher risk for radiation for pilots that are always flying, and of course the grid can go down. And once again, they are trying to tell you a little bit about, they've got the same talking points as FEMA did, that these are the things that can happen during a space weather event, depending on the type of space weather event that we're having, but you're really not hearing much about it. Here is that September 1859 Carrington event, if you want to know about that Carrington event. And you can always go to Ben Davidson, who does a great job of doing the backstory on this. He just doesn't do a lot of the government preparations, which is my wheelhouse. Okay, so let's see what I've got now. Let's see, I've gone to NOAA. Okay, we're going to go to the types of storms here. So most of you are aware that we have had a lot of northern lights. And I think if you go to shepherdsheart.life, the Egyptians talked about the red auroras, and some of the other ancient civilizations did also, and it was always associated with cataclysm. Now, it's not even in the northern, like where you expect it, the North Pole, um, they're green, they're blue, they're not typically red. So when you see red, it has been associated with cataclysm and has been throughout history. So there are radio blackouts, which is what we just saw that first place that I went to and showed you the big red bullseye. That is a radio blackout. This talks a little bit about the radio blackouts. Then there's solar radiation storms that can be the coronal hole or solar flares. This just gives you a little bit so that you can understand what types of space weather are going to hit us. And then there's the geomagnetic storms right here that can pose problems for many activities, technological systems, and critical infrastructure. And they can come to us via coronal mass ejections, and they can disturb the geomagnetic field for several days. Basically, our the field around the Earth starts jiggling a little bit, and it can get jiggy, as they say. So I think that's, I'm not sure if there's any, oh, we are going down those. So National Weather Service also talks about forecast, past weather, safety information, education, news, and search. Be aware that so it was predicted that when this last week's space weather hit the Earth, that 4 days later there would be tornadoes. So space weather can um, precipitate down the road by a few days, tornadoes. It can impact volcanic eruption. It can cause earthquakes. And so we really do need to pay attention to it, even though we have busy lives. It's really easy once you really incorporate space weather in with your regular weather, like, is it safe to drive on this day or whatever? Um, Let me see here. Okay, oops, that was great, Celeste. You brought it up on your screen, but I didn't share screen. So let's see, scales. Let's do the scales. Get it a little bit bigger here. So these are standardized scales, and they are standardized around the world. So there are extreme, which is your R5 and your R and severe. So we actually went into the extreme level last week. Believe it or not, extreme. So we could have had some, I mean, we literally could have lost the grid around the world, or at least half the world. So we really need to pay attention to this. Um, right now, we are down here in the minor area. So, not much is happening. But if you want to know about the different scales and of radio blackout, then you could come here and look at this particular. I don't know if they've got the scales for they do have the scales. So, okay, it's not wanting to cooperate. So here's biological hazards when it's high, passengers and aircraft, satellite. I find that they don't, other than UV, and I'm noticing on my uh, actual terrestrial weather, they're starting to put UV because UV is going to be increasing throughout our life also. And so that can damage your eyes. Plants have been burned by it in the last couple years. So it is a factor, but it's not the only factor. And Ben Davidson does do an excellent job of in his books and on his 5-minute daily broadcast about what it can do to biology. So back to the studio here. Sorry, I have to keep myself on track by talking to myself and try and get this. I don't know what that one is. Oh, we did this one, so we can get rid of this. Sorry, wish there was an easier way to do this, guys, but there really isn't an easier way to do this. I've been there, done that, done that. I don't know what is this one? Okay, so this is from Homeland Security, protecting and preparing the homeland against the threats on electromagnetic pulse and geomagnetic disturbances from 2018. That was linked from before. So I'm going to X out of that, go back to the studio. Only a couple more. So, is there anything about space weather in our Federal Register? In the old days, everything, including biological experiments, was in the Federal Register. Not so much these days, but if you go to the Federal Register, which is federalregister.oneword.gov, then you can type in space weather. And I'll just give you one example that on March 20th, 2023, there is going to be the national, basically about the Space Weather Advisory Group, acronym SWAG, is going to be meeting for half a day. And so I'm not sure what all they're going to be up to. They don't often, these committee meetings that are in the Federal Register, they have different acronyms, SWAG and SWARM and stuff. We don't ever hear what goes on in them. Oftentimes, their meetings are closed and confidential, but at least you know that, yes, in fact, in our Federal Register, different agencies are putting their different group meetings on space weather, and that's important for you to know. So let's see what else I've got here. Now, let's see. Oh, that's right. I got to go back here. I think this is my last one. And if you have any questions, you can type them in now while I struggle to get this up here. So if you live in Europe, like I said, it doesn't matter what country you're in, space weather is going to impact the world, and various country groups as well as countries are getting their space weather plan. So let's see if this is the European Space Agency. Let's just type in space weather and see what happens. So they have 175,000 things on space weather, everything. This is the European Space Association, and the hazards. Um, they also have their own portal, space weather effects, monitoring how they're monitoring it, solar hazards. I'm going to go to the next. They have a really nice. They have a nicer site than we do. This is great. I'll have to come to the Europeans to get my space weather. Once again, what it is, how does it affect the astronauts? How does it affect satellites? Um, are the mystery Mars plumes caused by space weather? I don't know about the plumes necessarily, but the ground quakes certainly. ESA's space weather mission to be protected against stormy. Yeah, they'll protect their stuff up in the sky, but they're not likely to be helping all of us on the ground. So I'm not sure if anybody has any questions on space weather. I know that was a whirlwind. If you do want my list, once again, it's Celeste at celestialreport.com. This is with the focus of what are the government plans as far as space weather, not really understanding the intricacies of space weather, which is a huge topic. I really highly suggest that you get the books that I use myself for reference, because it's hard to keep everything in your brain, especially when you're have a busy life and we have so many other things to be concerned about. But Celeste at celestialreport.com, space weather, and then I will send you my list of links and you can do your own deep dives. So, with that, I hope this gives you a few tools to work with, and we will see you on the next situational report in a week. I will be on the road on a 6-week speaking tour. Hopefully, I won't have any space weather to worry about, but we will see you next week with another situational report. And God bless until then.